As a pastor, I've had literally hundreds of conversations with folks inside and outside the church that center around this question: what am I supposed to do with my life? Or people asking, what was I created for? What's my purpose? For the past month, those are exactly the kind of questions we've been trying to answer here at Church of the Shepherd as we've been in this More series. Each week we've been diving into a different chapter of the book of Ephesians, trying to tackle the questions of what on earth is my purpose. Maybe you joined us last week or saw an online sermon or didn't catch it at all, but either way, we made a challenge to ask God, where am I called? Who am I called to connect with? And what am I called to do in that space? If you joined us at 10:45, Pastor Danny shared a quote from Frederick Buechner when he talks about the individual calling that we each have. He says, our calling is where our greatest gladness and the world's deepest hunger meets. So as we dive deeper into the people that God has uniquely crafted and called us to be as a church, what we wanted to do was talk a bit further about some of these topics we've been batting around for the last few weeks and how we might go about articulating that passion as it intersects with the needs of the world.
Yeah, and I think that how conversation, it's a really sensitive one. I think a great example is this, that I'm at a high level an extrovert. And so I love getting a chance to meet people. And as a pastor, I often dream up ideas or events that are thinking, how many people can we invite? How many people can come? Who can come be a part of this? And that's my framework for thinking. But if you look at another side, introverts, they're very much different, right? They don't think in terms of how many people. They ask questions of how many deep relationships can I build? Maybe one or two or even three deep relationships. Where I'm thinking in terms of hundreds, they're thinking of one, two, or three. And both of those are really important to our mission. Both are really important to the way that God has wired us. But this idea of introversion versus extroversion, those are the ways that I think we interact with the world. And then we see in Scripture this thing called APEST, and that's the way that we interact with the world in ministry, the domains of thinking and acting that God has given us to articulate our gifts into the world.
Yeah. And when you think about APEST, it's not so much about a particular spiritual gift. It is about those domains, that bigger picture that all of us have. And if you aren't familiar with APEST, APEST stands for Apostle, Prophet, Evangelist, Shepherd, and Teacher. Now, all of these gifts are a part of all of our lives, but some of them may be more apparent, may be our main domain of working. So each of us have a common mission to go and make disciples for Jesus Christ, to share for the transformation of the world. That's all of us have that. And we live that out, though, in unique kind of ways. And so in Ephesians, we find those apostles, or the sent ones, the ones that are sent out on behalf of someone. We find those prophets. Those are the ones that they're like the eye and the ear. They can hear and see a message from God or something that God's trying to help us with, and let that be known to other people. Or the evangelists. And the evangelists, I love the way Alan Hirsch puts this, they're like the song singers. They like telling the story and inviting you to find your place in that story. And then there are the shepherds. Sometimes we call those pastors, but they're the folks who build community and tie everything together. And finally, then the teachers, they're the people that have wisdom and understanding and help connect all of those dots. That's a part of what we are all kind of gifted to have in one way or another, and one of those is our sweet spot.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like in Ephesians 4, we read about these different ways that our gifts are articulated: a prophet, or apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, and teacher. And each one of those ways is how God is calling us to dive more deeply into this how of the mission that we're called to do. And I think it's great you talked about what those look like in that way. And I was thinking of, what is a more practical version of this look like? And so I was thinking about the A for apostle, right? These are the people that in your church, you're going to find them building teams. They're the people that are talking about what does it look like to take the next hill for Jesus, running and taking it. They're the DNA carriers, right? We see the P's, right? The prophets. Those are the people that care about the things that deeply matter to the heart of God. They're often the ones you see in your church talking about justice and injustice, right? And they're the ones that are pointing out, is God in this thing? Or maybe is God not in this thing? E for evangelist, right? That's what I would say I find myself in very heavily. And they're the ones that are attempting to draw crowds, right? They're the ones that are trying to invite people in. They're always talking about Jesus, why Jesus matters, how Jesus is a part of other people's lives, and trying to live into and create this forward momentum within the movement of the church. And then there's the shepherds and the pastors, right? These are the people that care about the people within their church. They try to include the marginalized. They care about the hurts and the pains, and they're trying to speak to the needs of their church. And then finally, we see the T, right? The teachers. These are the ones that are the big idea communicators, the ones that you see maybe up on a Sunday, or they're leading a small group, or they're teaching a Discover course. These are the ones that are out there talking about these big ideas about who God is and what God is about, and trying to articulate them and share those with the larger group.
Yeah, and these are not just things inside the church. These are our way of being in the church as well. So we need all these people, right? Inside the church and outside the church, we need all these, not just apostles. If we had just apostles, there'd be nobody caring for anybody. And if we had just people caring for anybody, who would be there to tell the stories? And we need teachers. We need everybody that's a part of that. So here's the challenge. We want you to do 3 things. If you haven't done it yet, grab a pen and paper and ask yourself these 3 questions. The questions that we asked last weekend in worship. Where is God calling me? Where has God uniquely placed you? Who am I called to minister to? Who are the people right around in that spot? And what impact can I uniquely make on their life? What difference are you being asked to play in that? And then second, after you've done that, take an APEST assessment. You can see that link right here with this cast, and it will help you understand further how to answer the how question. And when it comes to applying your passion and skills in the corporate mission of the church or in your unique calling, it will help shape that domain that you're best going to do that in. And then join us back in worship this weekend. As we wrap up more this weekend, we are going to talk more about how God made us to win more, how that winning isn't about us, but it's about these gifts and our passions intersecting at the world's needs. I just don't think you're going to want to miss it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a ton of excitement. We're excited to wrap this up and dive into what does it look like to take this into the world. And so I just want to thank you so much for taking a moment to watch this video with us. Our greatest hope is that this can be uplifting and you can learn. And I just want to ask you to do a couple favors for us to engage with this. We'd love you to like the post and to share it. We want this to be as impactful for as many people in our community, not just here at Church of the Shepherd, but share it with anyone that you feel might be looking for something like this. And then as John said, there's a link for the APEST test. We want you to put those results in the comments section. We would love to see how you're learning more about who you are and how God wired you. So comment with those results or email them to one of us. We would love to see them as well. And then as John said, join us back here in worship. We are so excited to wrap up this more series, to go into the 6th chapter of Ephesians, and we really don't think you're going to want to miss it. And so we're going to talk about who God created you to be. And we just can't wait to dive into that story and see how you're a unique part of this community and how your spiritual gifts actually meet a physical need here in our community. And so we look forward to seeing you guys back here.